Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Lori J Journals. Thanks for tuning in today. Excuse my voice, still fighting off that cold I mentioned in the last couple of videos, but I am feeling better. I sound worse than I feel. I am here recording today for the second part of the week 3 of Savage Stitches challenge. So if you watched my last video, I mentioned that I was going to do it in 2 parts. So we worked on that kind of Frankenstein, messy, amateur fabric stitching, putting pieces together with black embroidery thread, creating either an embellishment or a piece for a journal cover, what have you. This part, part 2, we're going to work with paper instead of fabric, and we're going to work with the sewing machine. And I want you to keep in mind, you can mix and match any of these. So you can slow stitch on the paper, you can machine stitch on the fabric. You can do whatever you want. We're mixing it up. This is all about the Frankenstein stitching, and that is just my term for kind of haphazardly putting pieces together to create a single kind of pieced together sheet. And you will see today that this is a little bit more of a practiced method for me. Okay, I'm not going to say I created something brand new, but this is definitely something that I started doing on my own, not after, I didn't get this inspiration specifically from another artist. It was something I experimented with long ago and had fun doing it. So I'm building it into this challenge. I would love to be able to show you a finished product, but I've actually used them all and given them away in swaps and Happy Mail. So hopefully by the end you will see a finished piece, and then I'll explain to you what I typically do with them. So this is most certainly a scrap buster. All you need for this challenge is a collection of scrap papers and a sewing machine. So what you can't see, because I haven't drawn out real wide, is I have a desk full of scraps, and I have a hard time throwing scraps away because I feel like there's always something you could be doing with them. So what you see on my desk right here in this messy pile is, recently I went on a work trip, so I dumped all the scraps in my 2 scrap bowls from my desk into a bag, took them with me, and while I was away I worked on some clusters and things. Instead of putting those away, I dumped them on to my desk because now I have a scrap pile. I also have this little bin, which is tiny little pieces of, mostly, you can see a few crept in, but it's mostly neutrals. Those are good to have. And then I also have to the side of me my big box of scraps, which is a collection of a lot of different things. So I have bigger cutaway pieces clipped together. I have lots of scraps of all different shapes, sizes, and colors. And then finally, I have a little container of, these are specifically painted scraps of papers that I have painted. Okay. So getting started, the first thing you want to think about is whether you're going for a specific color scheme. And if you are, then you want to sort through all your scraps and kind of sort out a pile of color scraps that you want to use. I'm not going to go in that direction. I have so many scraps. I'm not even going to start to sort through. One of the fun things about making a scrappy project like this is if you use a lot of different pieces, and don't go too strong with any one color, then you can use it for almost anything when you're done. Okay, I definitely am going to build in some neutrals. These are some recent scrap pieces off of, I think it was actually a piece of under paper, a place I was setting down my brush and brayer when I was working on a project. Always little bits and pieces of music sheets and book pages that got cut away when you're working on big projects. Those are always good. And you can see I've got a little bit of everything in here. And that's a really good way to start. And if you find yourself moving towards a specific color scheme because you have scraps like that that you want to use, then go for it, okay? I will say this, really thin papers like tissue paper, probably not going to work very well for this project. These won't sew in well, so probably kind of skip those. And napkin scraps, too thin, too fragile for this project. Okay, so overall, this is going to look a little bit like creating a master board. The way we take scraps and we put them together and we create one big sheet out of it. But I want you to think of it a little bit more like a patchwork. Okay, so it's going to have a master board kind of feel, but you are essentially creating like a patchwork out of scrap pieces of paper. Last thing before we get started, if you feel like it's really important for you to create shape before you get started, you could decide to sew this all onto a deli sheet. I prefer not to do that. I like to keep it kind of fluid and build it as I go. But if you're the kind of person that needs structure, just start as we build the pieces, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. If you feel like you want to put a dab of glue on them and start on a deli sheet, you can do that. I prefer to back the sheet in the end once I'm finished with the deli sheet. All right, so to get started, I'm just going to take a couple of pieces of paper and I'm setting them on my sewing machine here so that you can see them. I've drawn in kind of tight. And think about some pieces that I might like to put together for color. And I'm going to start really kind of faint and neutral and build out a little. I'm going to build color in as I go. And the papers can be any shape that you want. If you like geometrics, cut them all into squares. Make them all the same. I am not going to do that. I like the look of everything kind of being a little bit different. And essentially what you're doing is you're sewing the pieces together. If you want your patchwork, so to speak, to be really tight, you can overlap the pieces like this and sew. I tend to put them not overlapped, unless if I want to eliminate a straight edge, I might sew this over the top. And actually, I think that's a really good way to start. So that's all I'm going to do. You do have the option of using any kind of stitch you want. I'm going to use straight stitch here because I'm going to, you'll see as we build it, it's not going to be all straight edges. So I like the idea of the controlled straight stitch so I can go in any direction and make it look however I want as I go. I always like to back stitch one or two when I'm done, just to kind of knot it off, so to speak. All right, no big deal. There we go, straight stitch. I've gotten started. If you watch my channel, you know I like scrappy, so I tend not to trim these away. I feel like if later on I'm building a project out of it and I want to cut these out, I can. But for now, I'm going to leave them in. All right, and again, I'm just kind of looking for a random selection of something that strikes me. And I want to leave all my options open for color because I'm not really deciding yet what my color scheme is. All right, I think I'm going to take a piece of this. I really like the kind of golden hue of this. And again, I'm not really concerned about what direction I'm going in at this point. You are certainly welcome. Oops, I forgot to put my... If that's important to you, then again, work in a certain direction. I'm going to be random for a little bit until I start creating more shape out of it. By the way, alternatively, if you have a few papers put together that you like, you don't have to start and stop. You can continuously stitch. This is a piece of inside of a junk mail envelope. I love the black and white mix-in it gives. And I thought about whether I should record this whole thing or not. It might take a little while and the video might be a little longer than I want, but I thought you'd like to see the whole process from beginning to end. So I am going to record the whole thing. Hopefully it won't go too long. And again, I'm just digging through my scraps as I go and looking for a piece to put in. And I am not overly concerned if there are gaps in my paper. If you want them to be tight and that bothers you, then make sure that you're tight, okay? And again, I'm just going to continue instead of pulling it out so that I can kind of keep the flow of things going here. And the other thing you can do, so you can see, I have other pieces of that same junk mail envelope. For Unity, I might mix that in further in. Like you can take some of the same papers and repeat so that you have, that you bring them together and create a Unity out of, with the whole thing. Let's see. A couple of people in the group, I believe, have already received pieces from me out of this kind of paper that I've made. So when I post this video, if you have one of those and you'd like to share with the group so they can see like what I did with it, that would be great. No pressure, but I create envelopes out of it, happy mail envelopes or embellishments for journals. So I think actually it's time for a piece of book page. And this piece of book page that I have is folded in half. It's like, it's doubled. And I think I'm going to leave it that way because it's pretty fragile. And that way I get a little extra stability with the paper. And you'll see in a few minutes when it starts to take some shape, I'm going to pull it out and start looking at, do I want to create shape? I'll show you what I mean. There's no rule to the shape or size that these pieces have, so use whatever you have and whatever you like the way it looks. I actually turn this and hit this in this direction. Like here's an idea. If you wanted to sew this in, you would have holes in your sheet, and that's fine if you wanted to do that. I think I'm going to hold off on that. I don't trust it just yet. I don't have enough of my page together. I'm just trying to find some kind of interesting things. I think blue will go okay here because there's blue. Again, I didn't want to overcommit to a certain color scheme because I wanted to have the option to bring in multiple colors. And I hope that sitting through the whole process here won't bore people. I'm going to hold off on that. Let's see. Oops, sorry, I did bump into my camera a little bit. Let me go in this direction, maybe. Now, when I work on this stuff, I try not to be super geometrical. I don't like when everything is the same size and shape. So I'll rip on things and tear off edges so that they're not square, or I'll tuck the square edges beneath, like when I overlap them here. I prefer that they're not perfectly shaped. That's deli paper. That won't go well. All those thin papers are not the best to put in here. Let's see what else I got. This is a fun piece of fabric paper. Adds a little extra texture. And again, you know, if you decide ahead of time how big you want this to be, you know where you're going to stop. I thought I would just go with it. So here's a perfect example. This is literally a piece of scrap paper. It's got this pretty coral color on one side with gold dots. It's got the piece of a flower design. I tore this off something and threw it in my scrap bucket. This likely in a lot of other situations would have ended up in the trash. So I'm going to stick it under here and get it in, because why not? And it's just playing as you go, you know, whatever you like. And sometimes the thread gets a little off kilter, and that's okay. Like, I kind of like the messy stitch of it all. And you can always, as you add pieces, come back. Let me show you here. I'm gonna end my stitching here and start over because I want to show you something. Okay, so this is what I have right now. It's this kind of disjointed piece, but I'm going to lay it flat so you can see. I can go back down and stitch in here. I might put another piece on top of there, and it's starting to build out. So I might say to myself, if I want, like, I usually try to think of either a full-size book page, you know, almost like copy paper, or, as I said, I like to back mine on deli paper, so that comes in a large square, almost scrapbook paper size and shape. So I'm thinking about that. That's what I'm going to back it on, and that's how I'm starting to imagine my shape. So I'm building out. As I get closer, as I get wider, I might decide to really start squaring it off, or I might not. I might not square it off until I get it, until I get it backed onto that deli paper. And that, you know, use the method that you like best. So I'm going to use this little piece here as kind of like a Band-Aid over this. And I'm going to stitch it right over. And it's the perfect shape and size. And just like with anything, I can always go over tiny little corners and edges with glue if I feel like they need better sticking, okay? But it's a lot of just kind of, and I'm going to swing this way. It's a lot of just kind of playing with your sewing machine. And what I like about it is you don't have to be an expert, right? It's really just kind of playing around with your machine, with your paper scraps, with fabric. It's kind of like whatever whatever you want to do. And I promise you, it looks like a sloppy mess right now, but pretty soon it's going to look fun. And again, you can always trim these strings. And by the way, I just happen to have black thread in my sewing machine. If you prefer a lighter thread, go with a lighter thread. Sometimes the black is a cool contrast, especially if you put book pages and music pages in. But, you know, do whatever you like. See, and as you come back around and add other things, you'll see that, excuse my reach across the camera here. I just want to tighten my thread. You end up coming back over edges that maybe didn't get enough reinforcement before. So there's always, you know, as you're building out, there's more opportunity to thread over some more. Let's see what else we got. I like this piece. I'm going to hold on to it on the side. Digging into the scraps. Let's see what we got. I'm going to pull some more out here. There is no limit to what you can do here. That's pretty nice neutral like this. If you go with like more faded colors, even if you add other colors in, they blend well, and you can use, you know, can mix some other things in. I think I'm going to stick this in here. All right. I should also say that you could do a version of this by hand if you don't have a sewing machine. Okay. So, you know, I think if I was doing it by hand, I probably would gather and select more of my scraps up front so that I had them all sitting there. And as I was stitching, you know, I knew what I was stitching together, and it would just look a little bit more like what we did with the fabric and the slow stitching. I don't like the straight edge there. I'm going to put this on top. There we go. All right, so I think you can see this all on screen. So I'm getting kind of this overlapped collage of pieces of paper, and I do think it's getting to the size where pretty soon here I'm going to start thinking about, you know, where I want to square it off and where I want to stop. But for now, I'm going to keep going a little bit longer. I want to add in some more music and book pages, because often that's, if we're using this in other projects, that's what's going to tie this piece together with other things we have going on in our journals. Okay, it's a little similar to what I have going on there. What else do we have? All right, so I have some pieces of painted paper here with some pink and bronze. Oh, but I have that. So you notice I have a combination of book pages. I have painted pages, right? There's several painted pieces in here. And then I have other more printed items. And I think that it looks better when you disperse all of that a little bit. Like, I don't want to put this painted paper right next to that painted paper. I feel like they're better off being spread out. I will tell you this, it's easy to start overthinking every piece that you put in, but I promise you, if you don't overthink it, it will all start to come together. The very first time I did this, I just took literally a bunch of random scraps. And I didn't think too hard about what I was putting where and what goes with what, and I'm dumping scraps all over my floor right now. And it came out really good. And I wish I had a picture to show you. I should have pulled it up on my iPad, but I did not. So, don't stress. Run with it and see where it takes you, because I promise you, you're probably not going to be disappointed. All right, now maybe I'll put this down in here. Whoops. Okay, you can see now that I think you can back here, maybe not. Okay. I really positioned my camera carefully so that you could see my sewing machine, and I don't want to mess with that right now. So give me a minute to get a couple more pieces in here, and then I'll pull it out and I'll show you that I've got it kind of squaring off a little bit. And again, I'm finding multiple pieces from the same paper, especially when they're neutral, that helps tie it together. So I'm trying to put those in here and there. All right, I think I'm going to add this one in here and then pull it out for you. But okay, I think I'm at a place where I can pull this out and show you. Okay, so this is what I'm working with so far. I'm getting close. See how I started to kind of square it off here because I'm thinking in terms of a page. You'll notice I have open spaces here. I didn't connect here. And I might go back and sew right over this, or I might add another piece. I definitely want another piece here because I don't want this open spot. But we're starting to build out. And probably what I'm going to do pretty soon here is conclude the video and finish off camera and just share the final photo so you can see how it finishes off. I don't think that we want a video running forever and ever and ever. So here, I'm looking to try to square off over here, so that I can complete a sheet. And there's nothing wrong with using just a piece of neutral paper too. I've done that, especially in areas where the colors are getting bright. It's about using up your scraps. So whatever you have, no rules. I really don't like a lot of straight edges, so that's what you see me contemplating here. I like it to look scrappy and not straight edged. And it's okay that this is a really big piece, because then I can either cut it down or overlap. And you see me working on a limited area in my desk, which is why I'm struggling a little. I'm having trouble moving things around without dumping it all onto my floor. All right, let's see. I think another book page might be good, but I think I want a different piece. Yeah, here we go. Book pages are really good fillers. And then I think that's a good spot for some more painted paper, because I don't have any there, but I lost the neutral piece that I really liked with the gold. It's buried under my desk somewhere, because that's what happens when you move papers around. All right, well, I could use that one. Nope, too close to a similar one. All right. Know that watching other people's process can sometimes be a little bit, you know, speed it along, lady. And if that's the case, please, you know, hopefully you feel free to forward through. Okay. So you can see my squares kind of coming along. I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate. I'm going to think about how do I want to finish off my edges, cover any gaps. So that's my thought process right now. Oh, I really like this piece. This was jelly printed with lace. Yep, I think I'm going to put that right there. We'll cover up that spot. It doesn't cover the whole thing, but it gets us part of the way there. I'm not stressing about these strings because they can certainly be trimmed. Oop, we're good. I'm not great at turning in my sewing machine, especially when I'm dealing with papers like this that are imperfect and they're not smooth. Okay. All right. I really like that piece I just added. There's another spot right here that I'm going to need something on, something not very big. Let's see. That might be nice. Let's see if I can trim this piece down a little. Yep, I think that might do it. And that won't need very much of a stitch. Some of you who are like really good at sewing are probably looking at me and thinking, what is she doing? because the answer to that is winging it. I'm winging it, friends, because I'm not, I'm not a skilled. So right there, I'm just closing a gap. And I think I screwed it up a little because my sewing machine got caught. It might need a Band-Aid, and that's okay. Yeah, I guess I'm going to need another piece there, but that's okay. I'll find something to cover it. There are scraps galore in this bin. Maybe that one? No, too much of a rectangle. This is like the weirdest. The fact that I save some of these things, I ask myself, like, how did that ended up? It might be because of what was. Yeah, that's probably it. I probably saved it because of what it says on the other side, so I'm not going to use it up. Oh, here's something fun. I'm going to use this. Let's see if this works. It has like spiral bound. Oh, I hope that this will work. I'm just going to put a straight stitch right from one end to the other, and hopefully it'll work. Yeah, because that's fun. It gives texture, and yeah. All right, so you can see it's starting to take shape. I need to fill in more down here and across here. I keep feeling torn about whether to keep going on camera or not, or to spare you. But what I do, here's what I'll do is, I suppose, I said this was going to be 2 parts. I'll post a 3rd part. And what I'll do is, I'll finish this off camera. And then when I'm finished, I will do a final quick video showing you how I back it onto deli paper and then use it to create ephemera. Okay? So we are making what Lori calls Frankenstein paper, where we're sewing scraps together, stitching them together to make this imperfect quilt of scraps. And then we are going to use that master board, so to speak, to create other things. Okay? So far you have part 1, which is your Frankenstein slow stitching fabric, and you have your part 2, which is your Frankenstein quilting of scrap paper. And then I will be sharing part 3, which will show you what I actually do with the Frankenstein paper. So remember to hashtag your posts. This is Savage Stitches 3. So hashtag Savage Stitches 3. And have fun creating. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Have a great one, you guys.